At first, no one understood what had happened. People simply began to feel a strange heaviness. Getting out of bed in the morning became difficult, their legs felt like lead, and their chests felt like they were being crushed by something invisible. Doctors attributed it to stress, lack of sleep, and anxiety disorders. But the scales showed something strange. Body weight fluctuated throughout the day without any logic. Some people lost kilograms in minutes, while others suddenly gained weight, even though they ate and drank as usual. The world didn't yet know that emotions had acquired physical weight. After a few days, the pattern became clear. Joy made people feel lighter. Laughter lifted their shoulders, quickened their stride, and allowed them to literally jump higher than usual. But fear and guilt weighed them down. After bad news, people began to slouch, as if a weight had been tied to their backs. Sadness settled in their legs, anger made their fists heavier. The stronger the emotion, the more it weighed. People no longer simply felt, they carried their emotions around like sacks of stones. Cities began to change. On the subway, people with heavy emotions descended more slowly, holding onto the railings with both hands. Elevators became more likely to get stuck, riders, overwhelmed by fear and despair, exceeded the weight limit. More people ran and laughed in parks, it was easier to breathe and walk there. Architects hastily reinforced bridges and balconies. No one had previously designed buildings with human sadness in mind. Now, emotions became a new form of stress on concrete and steel. The economy responded quickly. Professions of lighteners emerged, people who could evoke joy, laughter, or a sense of hope. Companies hired them before important negotiations so that employees literally weighed less and felt freer. Fear became the enemy of productivity, frightened workers slowed down, fell more often, and dropped tools. Corporations began measuring the emotional weight of their teams, displaying charts of depression and anger alongside financial reports. But children fared the worst. They couldn't hide their emotions. Their fears were raw and intense. In schools, students with poor grades literally couldn't get out of their chairs. Teachers noticed, the harsher the punishment, the heavier the child became. Some children fell right in class, overcome with shame. This marked the first time people began talking about emotional abuse as a physical threat. Adults' words could break bones without touching skin. Extreme cases also emerged. People who had experienced profound loss became unwieldy. They had to be transported on special platforms. Some literally grew into the floor, unable to take a step. Psychologists worked alongside engineers, trying to relieve their patients with conversations, memories, and support. Sometimes, tears helped them lose a few pounds. Sometimes, not. The most difficult emotion turned out to be hopelessness. Society split. Light people began to be loved and feared simultaneously. They were considered superficial, carefree, empty. Heavy people were pitted but avoided. Neighborhoods emerged where the happy ones didn't go, their lightness irritated those who had carried pain for years. And in these light neighborhoods, discussing tragedies was forbidden, so as not to weigh down the atmosphere. Emotions ceased to be a private matter, they became a social problem. Then people began to learn control. Not to suppress emotions, but to distribute them. Anger was released in training, fear in conversations, sadness in music. Emotional scales appeared in homes, displaying not the weight of one's body, but the weight of one's soul. For the first time, people saw how much they were truly carrying within themselves. And many realized, they had been carrying for too long what should have long been released. Professional, emotional movers appeared, people capable of temporarily transferring other people's emotions. They came to the homes of those who were too heavy, taking on some of their fear, sadness, or anger. Sometimes it was voluntary, sometimes for money. Some movers began to feel terrible, other people's emotions accumulated, turning into their own unbearable weight. The world realized that emotional labor could be more dangerous than physical labor. Love, too, became physically tangible. Lovers felt lightness, floating above the streets, holding hands. But if love was not reciprocated, the burden fell on the one who loved more. Divorce, betrayal, and deception led to instant, emotional obesity. The heart ached not only metaphorically, it literally pressed on the ribcage, creating a feeling of unbearable weight. Emotions became a new form of health and illness at the same time. Over time, emotional banks emerged. People put aside joy to use in difficult times. Fear and sadness could be stored and gradually released. These banks evolved into a new economy, trading emotions became commonplace. But a black market in emotions quickly developed, underground traders resold other people's joy or fear. People began to realize that emotions were not just a matter of personal life, but also a commodity. The world of science accelerated. Physicists attempted to measure the weight of each emotion in grams. Psychologists calculated how much happiness it took to lift a person 10 centimeters. Schools introduced lessons in emotional physics. It became clear that the human psyche is not just the brain and feelings, it is a real physical object. Emotions moved bodies, buildings, transportation, and the economy. Mental stress ceased to be an abstraction. Emotionometers emerged, devices that measured the actual weight of emotions in real time. They became mandatory in workplaces, schools, and hospitals. People wore them on their chests to control their own weight. Violating the norm was punishable, those too heavy could be sent to overload sessions, those too light to balancing. The new law of society was simple, emotional responsibility was now physical. In some places, anarchy arose. Those who did not want to control their emotions created chaos. The streets became unbearable, angry and frightened people literally collapsed onto the sidewalks, blocking traffic. The light and joyful hovered above them, oblivious to the heavy bodies. The government tried to regulate the flow of emotions, separate sidewalks for the heavy and light. But the world had already been changed forever. Culture changed. Music, dance, and cinema began to embrace the weight of emotions. Artists created paintings that not only touched the heart but also lightened the shoulders. Dancing became a way to literally shed a burden. Festivals of joy and laughter gained popularity not only for pleasure, they lightened the cities. For the first time, people experienced true freedom, lightened together, they could soar above their problems. But there were also dangerous extremes. Extreme emotions, generated by drugs or virtual reality, allowed for instant flight or collapse. People became addicted to heaviness or lightness. Some, immersed in fear for the adrenaline rush, literally lost control of their bodies. Emotions became a weapon, entertainment, and a drug all at once. The world learned to value balance, otherwise, one could lose oneself under the weight of one's own soul. Emotional zones emerged in cities. Neighborhoods of joy, calm, fear, and sadness became isolated. People went there to lose weight or gain a desired amount. In parks of joy, the air was almost weightless, while in neighborhoods of fear, steps were laborious. Psychologists advised visiting different zones for harmony. Now, a walk around a city became not just a matter of transportation, but a workout for the soul and body. Families began to consider the weight of emotions when raising children. Parents monitored not only their child's health and nutrition but also their emotional burden. Games, conversations, and encouragement became tools for regulating the weight of the soul. Shame and fear produced immediate results but left a lasting mark. Joy, laughter, and support brought slow but sure relief. Society realized that by raising emotionally healthy children, it was building not only a happy but also a physically light future. Science and medicine discovered emotional surgery. Specialists helped people overwhelmed by heavy emotions remove the extra pounds from the soul. Sometimes this involved talk therapy, sometimes meditation, and sometimes innovative methods that allowed for safe weight redistribution. Some experiences could not be eliminated, but they could be alleviated. The world gradually realized that controlling emotions was a matter of survival, not just comfort. Technology went further. Emotional suits appeared that temporarily took on the weight of emotions. A person could work, run, or travel without feeling the weight inside. But with the suit came dependence. Without it, the heaviness returned instantly. People began to divide life into with the suit and without the suit. Emotions became a resource that could be temporarily rented or delegated, but not fully controlled.